welcome to Adventure Guys, the podcast for humans and dogs. I'm Eric the Human.
I'm Nick the Human. We're back here again for number 3 of the Fionna and Cake mini-series.
Yeah,
limited edition series. What do they call these? Limited series?
Sure.
Yeah.
Are we now the podcast for humans and cats?
We are. And squirrels on this episode. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. It's fun covering a current topic, as we've been discussing, versus one that happened a decade ago. So it's really great. I just want to say, if you're enjoying these Fionna and Cake episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Follow us on Spotify, if you're on Apple Podcasts. That would be really rad. We've been doing this podcast for years at this point, and we have years in front of us. So if you like the vibe, we're gonna be there for you.
Yeah, we'll be there for someone.
Yeah. Okay. Fionna and Cake Part 3. Cake the Cat. Let's go right into episode discussion.
Okay.
Episode discussion. All right, we got a more of a fun episode this time. Last time, if you listen to the last episode, it was a heavy one. Probably the heaviest episode. For me? Also, where my mental state was, it just matched up perfectly with Simon's. Yeah. But I was like, this is maybe the heaviest episode of Adventure Time I've ever seen.
I think it's a sleeper heavy episode. I think surface level, it does a lot of Adventure Time things that seem normal, but the undercurrent is maybe the strongest. Like, there are definitely like more outwardly tragic episodes of Adventure Time, but yeah, Simon Petrikov, Fionna and Cake episode 2, seemed like it carried the most weight in subtext anyway.
Yeah, it was. We don't have to talk about it again. We went through it. Go listen to that episode.
Yeah.
So after that, it was really nice to be back with Fionna and Cake. I thought, first off, we start off with Finn and Jake, which is a blast to see. Then we go to the real world again with Fionna, and it's just a more general, lighthearted episode. There was some really great laughs, mainly thanks to the squirrel, who's unnamed, that character.
Yeah, I think it's just Squirrel.
Squirrel was great. So this was a nice balance to the last one.
Yeah, this one, it feels more at home. It not to say that the first episode wasn't fun and lighthearted, but there was still a lot of like confusion about or maybe just like mystery about what the show was going to be at that point. Now, I think by episode 3, and I have watched ahead. I have seen episodes 4, 5, and 6 also at this point, and I think 7 and 8 have aired already too. Yeah. But
I've been holding. Yeah.
So at episode 3, I think this is the one that kind of, it's not like abundantly clear in an outright kind of way, but it seems like it's safe to say at this point that Fionna and Cake is a sequel series to Adventure Time. Like, that's what it's going to be. Like, we sort of got like hints of that from episode 2, but like it seems like this is where we're going. Like, this is the trajectory of the show. It is a proper sequel, which is cool to define it that way.
Not a spin-off.
Right.
It's just really cool. I mean, when honestly, I think we talked about it. I mean, it's somewhere in the pod archives, but when they announced Fionna and Cake, I was a little disappointed because I wanted a sequel series.
Right.
And you kind of think, well, the Fionna and Cake episodes are fun, but it's Ice King nonsense and it's inconsequential, and it's like, that's not what I'm in for. But that is not what we're getting.
Yes, this is very much core canon storytelling, and doing it from the Fionna and Cake angle is like a creative home run. Like yeah, exactly. Like, they took something that you were like, that's the choice. Weird. I'm not sure if I understand how they're going to do it. And then they fucking do it. And it's like, it's eye-opening. And they're like, fuck yes, they nailed this in a way that I didn't even consider was possible. That's exactly what you want from art.
Yeah.
They fucking did it.
That is what you want from art. People don't think they want that. People think they want to know what they're getting, and boring people maybe do, but this is what you really want. This is what we all really want.
Yeah. So this episode was fun. It starts off with Finn and Jake, which is still a little confusing at this point. it becomes clearer with the next episode, but it's still at this point a big question mark. Like what the fuck are Finn and Jake doing? It looks like Finn is not the same Finn as the one that we saw in episode 2.
Mm-mm. This is from an earlier time, clearly. Years before. Maybe like a good 10 years, 15 years before.
Yeah, so is he watching like
reruns?
Yeah.
Well, Prismo, yeah, so this starts out, we see Finn and Jake on an adventure. They're now older. They're probably in their 20s, or Finn's in his mid to late 20s or something in this adventure. And Jake's there and they're just humming along. Prismo's watching it from his place. Got stubble on his face and looks sort of like ragged. And
he's been going through something.
Yeah, and then this is what we saw at the end of the last ep, which was the remote control for Prismo was like there was like a beep, like and a button to push, but Prismo was like nah, and just turns up the volume on the Finn and Jake rerun. So yeah, and then we just zoom right out of that into Simon.
Yeah, I do want to say that the violence that's in that first opening scene is uncharacteristic, and we got plenty of that in the first couple episodes also, and it's a little bit weird to see Finn just literally chop off someone's head with a sword, and like there's blood, and there's a lot of blood in this episode. It's like even Cake is cat scratching people are bleeding, like there's like legit violence in this episode, and it's cool that we can see that, I guess, but I want to like at least assign like meaning to it. Like I don't think it's gratuitous, and I don't think it's like, oh, we're trying to appeal to an older audience. I think it's just more an indication of like, yeah, these characters have aged like the audience has, and it's not necessarily like they're playing to an older audience, but it's just like this is a more accurate depiction of what these characters are going to do as they get older. It's like, yeah, we're actually going to cut the head off a fucking monster with a sword.
Yeah.
Like maybe 17-year-old Finn would have like shied away from that kind of thing, but he's lived through some shit at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're just going to fucking murder beasts in the forest and shit, and that's status quo.
On to the next level. Yeah.
It says a little bit about like the mental state that Finn is in. Like what, like, you know, we don't see the events that occur that lead him to be such a non-hesitant murderer. But yeah, he doesn't have, doesn't have any qualms about this shit. So it's in those intervening like decade, 15 years or whatever it's been, I'd like to think there's some sort of inflection point, an event, something that happens that, we haven't seen yet.
We might, yeah. Or just like for most of us, you get a couple of smaller ones along the way that make you not as afraid.
Yeah, well, I sort of get the feeling that they're numb to it. And like I think it would be good storytelling if there was some sort of resistance to that at some point, and there was an event. I remember thinking about the Bonnabelle Bubblegum episode where we see Princess Bubblegum turn her uncle into the Dum Dum, and it's an accident. And it was disappointing because we don't get to see the actual event where she decides to do things like that. But that at some point there was a flip, there was a decision made, and maybe that depiction of like it being an accident was just to somewhat soften the character arc that we get to see. But I like that there's the possibility that that we don't have access to everything about these characters. Like there is plenty of stuff off screen, and we just have to guess at that. So yeah, I appreciate the subtle differences in the way that they're visually putting these characters in action, because it is different, and I'm noticing it, and I think it speaks to character development, off-screen character development.
Amen, Eric. I agree with those sentiments. That's happening. I could say. Yeah, man, I don't know what to add, but you're spot on. We're seeing it. We talked about Finn a lot last episode and how troubling it was. And this is like, I guess, probably the middle points before Jake's gone, which that's really a turning point event. But there's still some things have happened. I know, and it's weird, man. I don't like saying this because I never like saying this about people. I don't like when people say it about me or other people. But there is something, I don't know, let me know if we were watching Finn and Jake adventure, and they're clearly, I don't know how old, they're like, I don't know, 27 or something. And there's a part of me I'm like, oh, they're still doing this? Where like Jake's got an egg on his head that's not an egg, and then they do Jake suit and they go.
They do Jake suit. Which
is great and the greatest hit, but you do wonder, you're like, well, that's what you were doing when you were 13, and now you're like in your late 20s, but I don't like putting that on people because if something works, hey, here I am playing guitar and writing songs instead of starting a family or whatever, like it's so cool. It's okay. And maybe someone would say that about me, but do you know what I mean? Where that's kind of what we were getting at last episode, where it's like Finn's now in his 40s or whatever, or 50 or whatever, and he's like still doing this stuff when he was 12.
Right. The whole aspect of this human city that floats above the ground, I think makes this particular issue more stark in that like there now is a version of humans doing human shit and like living in a society and like adhering to norms and that kind of shit. So Simon not having direction to like break out of that and Finn never adapting to it, there is something to compare their character against. Like now that we do have this human future civilization, I kind of wonder if we'll get more details about that later on in the series. It's like a little bit interesting, but
what was the development? How did we get here?
Oh yeah, we do see Minerva at one point.
We do?
Did you catch that? Finn's mom.
Where?
They're this is when Cake is running through the city looking for Fionna, all scared, still has like the male dog voice, and you for a second you get a Minerva that walks by and is like, do you need help? Can I help you? Something like that. It's probably not Finn's actual mom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like
it's a facsimile or
so
the
like
next level.
Right, like that whole Islands arc when you learn like that backstory, there were like those Minerva bots, and it's kind of weird to think about, like, is this like the actual consciousness or is it a copy of,
Mm-hmm.
and like how many of them are there? So like I kind of wonder like about this new city, are there like multiple Minerva robots roaming around helping people?
Interesting.
Yeah, there's I mean, this is something that the show has been doing consistently now for the last 3 episodes, is just present like these really fun Easter eggs that make you question like this whole deep possible backstory. And I wonder if we'll get a further glimpse into what humans are actually doing in Ooh at this point.
That would be really great. I mean, I haven't seen it, part. I guess a lot of the listeners probably by the time this comes out have seen a lot more, but I really hope we get to see that too. It'll be interesting to see how much you think even if they don't get to it, you think we'll get. It seems like this whole thing is continuously opening the door for more.
Yes.
Of this, like
yes.
This, like we're in a whole new timeline and part of the show that they can keep going with. So let's see how we do. Yeah, because there's a lot of implications there. It's a lot about what does it mean for. Obviously, we've seen what it means for Simon, but exploring what it can mean for Finn and all humans and everything going is interesting.
Yeah,
and it was cool in this episode because Cake freaks out once she gets through the portal and then is running around, and then the climax is like she jumps over the edge of the floating world. And I think we've seen where the floating world is. Like obviously it's in the beginning and in the other episodes, but it was a really cool moment as Cake's falling. You really see the layout of what's going on. You're like, okay, there's Candy Kingdom. There's the ice world. There's now the floating human world. Below us is now the forest and everything. So it's like, oh, okay. Like you see how it fits into the whole tapestry view.
Yeah. And we do see the ice thing fly overhead.
Oh yeah.
Into the Ice Kingdom.
Yeah.
That's gotta be some sort of player in this.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But
yeah,
it's creepy.
Yeah, but anyway, Cake falls and lands in the forest
on her feet.
Cat move.
Yeah.
And one of the 9 lives right there spent, and then immediately encounters the squirrel.
Mark Maron.
Yeah. So now I haven't seen the squirrel episode yet that you told me about.
Yeah, I forget what season it's in, but there's this whole episode with Mark Maron as a squirrel. It's like very silly. It's like uncharacteristically silly because like the squirrel character is drawn so weird.
Is this it?
That's different. That's a different squirrel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's drawn differently. The Mark Maron's like vocal performance of Squirrel is really interesting. Yeah. Where it's him, but it's like earnest. And it's playing. I said to Eric while we were watching it, I was like, Mark, like I'm getting totally taken out of it, but in a really welcomed way.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yeah.
I mean, I hear that voice so often.
Yeah.
I just listened to.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, are there any good eps up?
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, Melissa Villaseñor.
Oh, I would love to hear that.
Was on. Yeah, she was great. And just like sort of randomly as an aside, like in the interview, Maron is like, "Oh, so do you ever do Adventure Time?" Like, yeah, like she's got like a recurring role as one of the glob faces, and like she does some other smaller voices, and she's like, "Oh yeah," like, but they talk about it as if it's like just one of those things that everyone does.
Yeah,
and it kind of is, and I love that these like high profile comedians just like have that regard for it. But then Melissa Villaseñor is talking about how the first time she did Adventure Time, she got to work with Maria Bamford, who was like a huge hero of hers, and then they're both just like guessing up Maria Bamford, just like talking about how amazing Maria Bamford's comedy is, and like how most people don't get it, but if you do get it, like you really get it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I love Maria Bamford. This is perfect. And then Maria Bamford just dropped an episode with on Maron like last week. I just listened to that.
I just saved these 2 to your episodes.
They were really good interviews. So just apropos of me listening to the podcast and hearing Mark Maron talk about Adventure Time with other voice actors from Adventure Time, and then to see Mark Maron immediately show up on the current Adventure Time episode, I was like, what? I don't think he mentioned that ever on his podcast, that he was a guest in a new episode.
No,
but he just brings it up like,
I know. I was like, we got to reach out to him and be like, fantastic job on Fionna and Cake. Because it's really great. Yeah. I mean, I really like, I mean, this is going off, but I love the podcast too. I've been listening to the podcast since I was in college, which was a long time ago at this point. 2011, I was probably listening to it, maybe 10 when it first launched, and podcasts were new, and it was like that and Comedy Bang Bang. And he's really developed, like he's had a whole journey through the thing where he starts off pretty bitter and lost, and then finds success, and now he's just like in a really cool, interesting place, and he's like gone through a lot of shit all on the podcast, and his partner died, and he's older, but he's like accepting of it. I don't know. And he's great. Where he stands on like political and cultural issues is always really welcomed. Pretty much. I don't know. He's turned into this like interesting guy. Like I've gotten burned out on him over. I think it happens to any podcast. I'm sure people have gotten there with us where like you just need a little space where you've like, I'm jamming this person's thoughts and words into my head too often. I need a break. But I always come back to him, and I find him really awesome and really welcoming.
I really like when he talks to other comedians, because I think like the best conversations happen that way. And I actually don't love when he talks to musicians because he is like kind of just an old guitar dude.
Yeah.
And he like really buys into the mythology of old guitar guys. And sometimes, like, I remember listening to his Trombone Shorty interview in particular, and the way that he was like harping on some music things, and Trombone Shorty was like trying to like answer the questions, but like that like the paradigm in which he thought about these musical things was so different. It's like, all right, I have to filter this through a way that Mark Maron, this old guitar guy, is going to understand.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, I feel the pain of of like having to explain music through that lens. So it gets a little frustrating with the music stuff. I did listen to his Flea episode kind of recently. And it was pretty good because I think they've talked a lot previously. Like they know each other through other things, so they talked less about the music and more about like stories and stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, there was a time I was seeing here. Yeah, like in the 2010s, he had on Ty Segall, and like I don't know if you ever got into all this stuff, but there was like a really healthy, I guess it was kind of the rebirth of the psych rock movement outside of like on the West Coast, starting in San Francisco, and then it moved to LA. But there was this whole scene, like Ty Segall was one of the big ones, and then also OCs are from that, and they were all like just churning out like multiple records a year of this just like garagey psych shit. And Mark got really into it. I think someone at like Permanent Records or something like got him the records, and then he met Ty, and then he interviewed Ty and Michael Cronin and those guys. So he had like a run there where like, he got into this new like 60s, 70s influenced rock music and I remember those interviews being kind of fun. But he is like blues guy, rock guy.
Yeah.
I mean, which is what he plays at the end. But I know I like it, but you just got to know going into it. That's the point of view,
right?
That you're getting. He loves, like, Keith Richards is his ultimate hero, which he'll always go back to. So it kind of tells you where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear the new Rolling Stones?
I didn't listen to it.
It sounds like some fucking Rolling Stones. That's as much as I can say. It's neither. That's not a positive nor negative comment. It sounds like the Rolling Stones.
I saw the Sydney Sweeney video, but yeah, I mean, it's actually just kind of a cool idea for a music video, right? She's going down like the Sunset Strip or whatever, and then there's these billboards that are different eras of the Stones.
Is that what that means?
I think like these are different albums and times. Well,
hey, it's no Chris Farron billboard. It's no hell mode billboard.
No.
We're just watching this video on mute right now.
Not
even listening
cool
to the song.
Oh yeah, which I haven't heard. Immediately better than the recent Eric Clapton, Van Morrison shit.
Oh my God. Did you see Eric Clapton's got a guitar festival?
He's had one called Crossroads.
Yeah.
He's had it for years.
And like there's all these fucking good guitar players on it. It's
still?
like, yeah, still. I'm just like, you guys don't care that he's like a huge fucking idiot / racist / what? Science denier? What is he?
Yeah, there's a list of issues.
Yeah, so Ariel Posen. This is how I became aware of it. He posted online he was doing it. I did monitors for him last year. Kurt Rosenwinkel.
He's great. I mean, we got Mayer, John McLaughlin.
Santana's on it. Makes sense. All right, Eric Clapton and Santana can do their old, shitty.
ZZ Top, Bradley, The War on Drugs. Everyone's fucking doing this thing, man.
What's that guy? Kingfish.
Yeah.
He's coming through Broken Bowl next month.
It's like one of those hard ones where I think everyone's just sort of like, the idea of Crossroads and Eric Clapton is bigger than. This is not my point of view. I'm just saying how one would look at it. Is you go, the idea of playing with Eric, is bigger than just the stupid shit he said last year. Like, it's a bigger thing. That's how I imagine you rationalize it.
Whatever. I've never really been a fan of Eric Clapton.
Me neither.
It's like, okay, another old white guy playing pentatonic scales. Great.
It's not for me. Well, it's just like I mean, the way I was introduced to Eric Clapton was like seeing some VH1 rerun or infomercial of him doing Cocaine Unplugged, and just being like, well, that's clearly not for me. But that said, you do hear Layla, and then you're like, wait, that's pretty fucking cool. And then a friend of mine showed me Live Cream, and I was like, yo, this rips. Like, this is good. The one thing that's funny about Live Cream is that apparently it's like, because they'll have like, they stretch out the songs and it'll be like a insane 6-7 minute solo, but apparently all those solos are like written like he did the same solo every night, which is fine because that's what a lot of guitar solos are. But it's like in that context of Cream, it feels like it's being presented as an improvisation.
Right.
Thought that was funny part of the lore. I don't know. It's just it's never totally spoke to me.
Yeah. John Mayer trio. I guess that's like the best way to see John Mayer.
Yeah. I mean, probably. He's really great with the Dead, but this is like him.
Yeah, no thanks.
This is him with but with the trio, right? You get Pino and who's the drummer? Is it Chris Dave?
No, Steve Jordan.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's pretty sick. I mean, that's because like, yeah, Steve Jordan. You got him doing straight Mayer stuff. Although Mayer took so much from Stevie Ray Vaughan, like so much.
Yeah. I
actually heard. Did you hear the tale that Mayer hired Stevie Ray Vaughan's old like tech to be his tech, and he like literally tracked down Stevie Ray Vaughan's like amps, not just like similar amp set, but like the amps. Like I've heard story.
What a loser.
That's the ultimate. Like I'm in the middle of trying to get a new guitar, and it's still in my head. Like I'm like, should I go see that other guitar tomorrow? That's the John Mayer thing is a good proof that the tone chasing shall never end. Till you're buying the actual gear.
Till you're
like,
hiring the guitar tech. You need the person by your side.
Yeah. Like you're probably contacting Stevie Ray Vaughan's like estate, his widow or something, being like, do you still have the amps? I don't know. Someone told me that. I don't know the whole
What
thing.
a fucking loser. I hate that shit. Okay. Like, whatever, you like the music, fine. Like, I'm not even really commenting on the music. It's just the mythology behind these old, straight, white guitar guys. I don't buy it. I don't buy into it. And it annoys the shit out of me when I see other old, straight, white guys that are just devoting their fucking lives to it.
Mm-hmm.
This mythology.
Oh, yeah. And all this stuff. Yeah. You know, the counter to that is that, I mean, it's music for them. Old straight white guys making music for other old straight white guys. It's kind of a very fair exchange. You know, we just sit outside of it. It's like, let them have their fun. You know what I mean? It's like that's who they're making music for. Yeah, I don't know. Let's get back on track. So I'm glad we started with episode discussion. Hey, if you're new to the podcast, this is the kind of stuff you're going to get from us. Yeah, so they go down. Squirrel is funny. Mark Maron. That's what it was.
Oh, right. Mark Maron.
Squirrel's very, very funny. I thought.
His the inflection that he speaks with is like, it's funny because he's doing things that are like sort of harmful or neglectful or just like reckless, I guess. But he's doing it with an air of this nonchalance and like, oh yeah, I sell apples. Do you want an apple?
Yeah.
Cake eats the apple and shrinks. Oh, did I forget to mention the apple is cursed? Like, come on.
Yeah.
That's a great cartoon gag, but the way that Maron delivers it in the way that only Maron could, it's a certain air of comedy.
Yes. And but not one that he probably taps into a lot because it's kind of out of his character. If you watch his stand up, he's not doing this.
Right.
It's like a very interesting mode that he's hitting on, and very welcomed and very fun. So they're like, he offers her apple, it shrinks her cake, and he's like, oh, did I mention the apple was cursed? And then he's like, well, we'll just have to go to the market and get a strawberry that enlarges you. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And you think like, oh, he's being a dick or whatever. Like this is like a Paul Scheer. Toronto? I was like, oh, is this Toronto vibes? But then no, he's just very earnest. And then his character is proven as his old roommates come back, which he didn't like a whole lot. And they start attacking him, and he talks about how he's just better off on his own and alone.
Yeah. The old roommates, voiced by Jim Cummings.
Oh, I was trying to figure out who that was. And they get into a scrape. Cake stands up for Squirrel, and he's like, oh, I have a new best friend. He's like, nope, she's like, I hate bullies.
Right. So like you start to see the characteristics of the Fionna and Cake that we know getting threaded in there. Mm-hmm. Like this is like Finn and Jake stuff, classic Fionna and Cake stuff. It's like, yeah, they just don't like bullies. Like they stand up for people who need help, and they're kind of just like giving you a little bit at a time here and there. It's sort of anchoring it back to like what we know, what we thought we knew about Fionna and Cake, but we're not there yet. It is important to notice that we finally get Roz Ryan's voice back.
Yes.
Took 2.5 episodes to get there, but we finally arrived. There's still like that weird, like speaking through a transponder kind of.
Which might be how it remains. We'll see.
We'll see. I've seen the next couple episodes.
Yeah, okay. But the voice is so good. And yeah, I mean, I think I wrote down here, she is so good as Cake. That's what I wrote down in my notes.
Yeah. We're slowly peeling back the layers of this weird world that we were dropped into in episode 1. And we're slowly revealing the core of Fionna and Cake as we thought we knew them.
Yeah.
Which is cool because we're also on this new adventure.
Yeah. Which I love. When they get to the market, Cake is able to eat one of the strawberries and gets too big. And there's like the fruit seller that's just yelling meanly the whole time, but saying nice and encouraging things.
Yeah.
You saved Squirrel, you're a hero, then you get to have anything you want.
Right.
She's
like New Yorkers.
Yeah, she's like, why are you like this? And she starts eating it, and then she gets too big and eats apples too small. And she's like, just try a bunch of these, and starts trying to figure out how to make her the right size. At the same time, we get like one of the funniest parts of the episode, which is a Mark Maron monologue.
Yeah.
This whole apple business isn't as glamorous as I make it out to be. And he says that like, I guess I chose this life. He's like, well, actually I didn't. This guy came up to me in the forest and said, this is your life now. You're an apple salesman, and it's a life of loneliness and solitude. And do I like the loneliness and solitude? Yes, I do. But also, it's lonely and solitude, and I don't like it. Oh, you're back to your normal. It was so good. Made me really laugh. And yeah. So then Cake's now there having a good old time.
Yeah. So can I say this squirrel character, Marin Squirrel character, reminds me a little bit of Tom Herpich's Mr. Fox.
Yes.
I would.
Yeah.
I would be so happy if we saw a Mr. Fox cameo in this series. But if we don't get it, Marin Squirrel fulfills everything I need from that kind of vibe.
We saw Mr. Fox earlier in the series, right?
Did we? We saw a fox, I think.
Yes. Okay, that's what it was in a montage. Yeah, super fun. At the same time, Fiona's just back in the normal world looking for Cake. She runs into Marshall Lee and LSP drinking at a fountain in the park.
Yeah.
Actually drinking.
Badass.
Yeah, at first I was like, is that a big bottle of wine? But then maybe it was hard alcohol. I was like, damn.
And then Fionna chugs it.
Yeah. And goes on her way, and then ostensibly stays up all night looking for
while
Cake, drunk until it's like 5 a.m. and Gary's getting to the bakery. Yeah, that was wild. And then we go back at this point into the other spot, and Simon is talking to Choose Goose and just like really fucking up Choose Goose. Like he said, what did he say to her? He said to Choose Goose, "You're nothing to me but a spell battery."
Yeah. So like, okay, that's what we're doing with Choose Goose. Because, again, I don't remember this, but at the end of Wizard City, Choose Goose turned into an evil, magical bad guy. So he's got evil magic in him, and he's just a battery for Simon to do spells.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's explained.
Explain.
It's not like satisfying, but it's also not disappointing. It's like,
No.
all right,
That's what it is. Okay, got it. Still weird. Choose Goose is weird.
Yeah.
I don't like the way Simon's treating Choose Goose. It's like, oh, this is not nice. This is abuse.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna drain him to death, Choose Goose, which I think he does after the episode, because he does the spell. He's trying to get, what's her name again?
Betty.
Betty. Yeah, he's trying to get back to Betty, and he says, "I won't think about Fionna and Cake this time," and then he does it again, and it opens a portal right back to Fionna. She comes out, and as Fionna enters, he's crying and saying, "This was my last chance to see her. That was my last chance," because I think Choose Goose is now dead and drained.
Is that like, yeah, because then he's like shaking the dead body at Fionna.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening.
Oh my God.
It's like, fuck, this Simon shit is heavy, man. And weird. Yeah, and then she opens the garage door, and there's the kid, who's now going to shepherd her to Cake to save her and through the world. And I imagine is going to be around a little more as this episode goes on. Astrid.
Yeah, who's just a FNC fangirl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. And then she drives her to the spot where Cake is, and Cake has now sung a song and feeling herself, but in the process, like, really harmed a lot of the creatures at this forest. Yeah. And they're all mad and are coming after her, and have now put her in one of those like vice grip medieval things where they're throwing tomatoes at her face. And then Fionna comes to save the day, which is now like kicking the ass and probably murdering even more of these people. And I was like, are these bad guys? Like, I don't think so.
This is a little disturbing, because like these are, I mean, they're not necessarily good guys. There is a banana guard in the mix.
Yeah.
But these are mostly just like sort of people minding their own business, like of neutral like disposition. And Fiona's kicking their asses. And so yeah, we keep peeling back the layers, like, all right, this is the adventurer main character kind of Fionna, like just kicking asses. And she says, "Yeah, I kick ass," or something like that. And but it's also weird because like these aren't bad guys, these aren't villains. You're just sort of indiscriminately like going ham all over the place. It's cool that we see the character do that, but also it's like uneasy because this isn't how it's supposed to be.
Nope.
For multitude of reasons, but there's like a little moment where it's like, all right, Fionna and Cake are back.
Yeah,
like the characters are here, and like they're doing the thing that we know, and that's kind of just how it ends, right?
Yeah. Until Fionna and Cake are beamed up by Prismo.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like right as they get their mojo back, basically.
Yeah.
Then it's like,
and Astrid sees them and is like, "Oh my God, you're the real Finn and Cake." Like, you can see it. Yeah.
And then they get zapped away.
Yeah. Can't wait to see more. Eric, did you see the snail in this episode?
All right, are we counting this? Yes, I saw the snail. Nick, did you see the snail?
Yes, because it was a part of Simon's spell contraption.
Yeah.
We're still unsure if there is somewhere on the line where they catalog where the snail is in every episode of Adventure Time.
Should we consult
for
an official ruling?
Yes.
I will say this: that snail shell, the skeleton, the snail. Let's say the snail skeleton. It's more macabre than fun. The snail skeleton was part of the background art and not character design.
Okay.
So I don't know if that affects the ruling or not.
Yeah. Where Where do wasn't there like a big? At some point I had like a huge snail. There was like a spreadsheet of this.
An official doc. There's
here we go.
there's
Yeah.
so much
Here
on
we
the
go.
internet, like it,
Here we go.
like in the online fandom that we don't know anything about. We're like kind of bad.
I know.
We are one of the preeminent Adventure Time podcasts, and yet we're like so far removed from like what's going on in internet Adventure Time fandom.
I know. I've thought about it where I'm like, how deep are we supposed to be?
Right.
I guess if you're a real head, you might be frustrated by us. But I don't know if that's who we're making the show for.
There's a lot of reasons to be frustrated by us.
Yeah. Okay, look, they're counting it.
They're counting it.
On the wiki, they are, yeah.
All right. Well, we did it.
It says here on Fionna Campbell, the first episode does not appear.
Yeah, we came to that conclusion, right?
Yeah.
You just spoiled something
I did.
for episode 4.
I did. But that's more because I wanted to see if it was like real or not.
That's interesting because I watched that episode. I didn't see that.
The snail.
That's really clever of them.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah.
Play that theme song.
Looking in the scenery throughout the land of Ooh, he lies in wait for me and you. We saw the snail. We saw the snail. We saw the snail. Searching far and wide, we build our eyes. We saw it 'cause we're the adventure guys. We saw the snail. We saw the snail. We saw the snail. We saw the snail. Yes. Yes.
The little plug, I said if you're enjoying it, follow, subscribe. We're on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and whatever. You could give us 5 stars. That helps us in the algorithm of whatever podcast app you're listening to. You can rate the podcast. If you go to Eric, it's not Anchor anymore. It used to be anchor.fm/Adventure Guys Podcast. They've
But that still works though.
still works. But if you so go to anchor.fm/Adventure Guys Podcast.
Yeah, because what is it now?
Podcasters.spotify/pod/show/Adventure Guys Podcast. That's really clunky.
Got to be something better than that.
I know. So, but yeah, wait. Oh yeah, you can support the podcast with like a monthly contribution, which we have a couple people who do. Thank you very much to those of you who are contributing. Haley, Kat Burnside, Dave, Jacob, Jake, my mom, Ellen. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is a real thing that matters because I think we're gonna try and do something with whatever funds we can raise.
We've been talking about it. So yeah, we have some actual funds now that we haven't touched in almost 2 years. It says so. We are going to use it to the betterment of the podcast. Yeah, and tell a friend. I don't know. Eric, should we move on?
Yeah, time for miscellaneous media.
There's things you may not know. Those Eric and Nick will show you all the trivia in miscellaneous.
All right, so do we have like decent trivia that we can look up now that this episode's been out for what, 2 weeks?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is just like connections or like, did you see that? I remember that's from this, and like, those characters were in there. I mean, I will say one thing that was corroborated that I saw was it was a Minerva bot.
Okay, cool.
And not just Minerva. So good call out there. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a good thing they brought up is that Jake is in this episode, but older Finn's there, and older Finn has the tattoo of Jake, which I always assumed the tattoo of Jake came as a tribute once Jake died.
Right. But it's funnier to think maybe he lost a bet or something.
And that's what they're implying.
Yeah.
So that's good.
I like that.
I like that too.
That would be great. Imagine if Jake lost whatever bet and he had to get a Finn tattoo.
Yeah.
Jake would never lose a bet. Finn would almost certainly lose any kind of bet or competition against Jake, and he's got to know that he would. But he would still try as hard as possible, and then he would lose, and then he got the tattoo. That's what I'm thinking happened.
I like that.
It's a fun scenario.
Yeah. Another fun thing that they put in here, which I didn't think about but really should have, is that the cursed apple with the shrinking effect is the same one from Up a Tree, right? Isn't that the episode with
the squirrel?
That's with the squirrel. Is that is tree trunks in it, or I'm thinking of the crystal apple?
Yeah.
The gem apple.
I forget what happens in that episode.
I know. I'm excited to get this episode. I feel like we're going to get this episode in like a year, and then we're going to be excited.
Yeah. Yeah, even like the first time that I watched through the series, like 5 years ago, at that point, yeah, I was definitely a fan of Mark Maron's podcast. And, when that episode showed up, it's like you instantly know that voice and you're taken out of it, but in a fun way.
Yeah.
Here's something that's kind of interesting. In the little Finn and Jake vignette that opens the episode, the temple that they're running through is a redesigned version of the Birdman's temple from a scrapped episode back from season 1. So there's this episode called The Helmet of Thorgon that was scrapped. I don't know anything about this.
I'm reading through it.
It's just an episode outline that never made it to the storyboard phase. The synopsis is Finn and Jake stumble across a field of delicious smelling flower creatures. However, a giant tells them that only beings with large noses can smell the flowers. So Jake grows his nose in size, but Finn is unhappy since he's still tiny. The giant tells Finn that a half-bird, half-man named Thorgon has a helmet that can help. So Finn searches for his temple. That's some zany season 1 shit if I ever heard anything.
That is total season 1 business.
I want to smell something nice, so I need to go quest for a helmet.
Yeah.
Great. So this is an episode that never came to fruition, and yet they are mining the depths to bring it back in Fionna and Cake.
Very intriguing. That's the good stuff I'm seeing. Eric, we don't have to go down the rabbit hole on this one.
Nah.
No. So we will just move on.
It's hard to do.
I know. Yeah, we did. We did all of our business. I saw Jeff Rosenstock last week.
Hey, Jefference. I missed him because I was running sound for what? What the fuck was I doing
You
in
were
my
working.
life?
The 7th.
I forget what show it was. Probably wasn't as cool as Jeff Rosenstock.
Yeah, it was great. It was the biggest show of his career. It was very fun.
Was it really?
That's what he said.
Biggest headlining show.
Yeah. He's played fests. But yeah, it's like 3,000 people fit in there. It was
That's right.
pretty damn full. Really good show. New song sounded great. It was awesome. I was saying to you, I texted you and Sean, he thanked Rick Johnson, Christine, and Hero. And I was like, so they're playing Terminal 5, 3,000 capacity place. It's the band, which is what, 6 people? Christine, who was at merch, Rick, who's at front of house, and Hero, who's taking pictures. And are we to understand that's the entire crew? I am always saying that because, like, I think when bands are at Terminal 5 status, they usually have a monitors guy at the very least with a front of house guy, and then techs and a merch person and a tour manager.
Well, we know their monitor situation is so silly.
Yeah. But it saves them a person, I guess. And they have the whole day to do it. But I love that. I was like, hell yeah. They're like, this is like some career shit where you're like, we all, I mean, they all must take home a lot. I mean, they could easily have a bunch more people out there. So I was like, dude, they're still like looking at ways like, no, we don't need somebody. We can just do that.
Yeah.
It sounded great too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was just not a great room to sound good in. Wish Mike Huguenot could have been a little louder, but it was good. I mean, also, it's just when you're that good of a band.
There was the whole merch cut tweet saga.
Oh yeah, that happened. Which I guess a lot of people just didn't realize merch cuts happen. Which I guess you might not.
Yeah, it's cool that there's attention on the issue now. But yeah, when bands play venues, the venues try to take a percentage of all the t-shirts and shit that bands sell. And it's like, why? You didn't fucking make these t-shirts. You're not giving us a percentage of all the beer you sell.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people were just sort of like, without the band, there's nobody there to buy the t-shirts or to go to the bar. Yeah, I think, what did Jeff say? He was sort of like, hey, if you're going to take a cut of the t-shirts, then we should take a cut of the bar. He goes, or the thing that makes sense is that you keep your business, we keep ours, and then we just go our own ways.
Yeah.
I mean, they took a cut of the bar. That's where the money's being made.
Oh yeah, for sure. Every band would agree to that.
Yeah.
And no venue ever would, which tells you, how the business is lopsided.
Oh, yeah. And I think people at Jeff shows are drinking beer.
Yeah. But yeah, there was a lot of old guys trying to mansplain. Well, you can negotiate that. No, you fucking can't.
I also love that they were just like, we're friend. There's what's being left out is the booking agent like could have negotiated, and then they're like, he did negotiate it. See where we don't have merch cuts at these shows, like
yeah. See where it's 10% instead of 25%.
Yeah.
That's because he negotiated as hard as he possibly could.
Yeah.
But the problem is that Live Nation bought up so many venues during the pandemic because live music took a dive. All these venues were out of luck and they were about to close down, and then Live Nation swooped in, and now they have, it's not a monopoly, but it's like a really unfair market share. And
huge.
Yeah, and smaller and up and coming bands have no negotiating power against that. I say this as an employee of a Live Nation owned venue.
Yeah. It's a wild situation. But I like that he's talked about, I gave a tip when I bought my Hellmode shirt. I mean, they must have been selling a lot of shirts. There was a huge line after the show. And the shirt, the long sleeve was $50.
It was $50?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because they were taking a merch cut, so it's more expensive. I think I added that to my my pre-order bundle for $40.
Nice.
Which is still like the most I've ever paid for a fucking shirt. Oh my God. But it is color changing fabric.
Yeah, which is extremely cool. And the thing is like just the market value of shirts, like $40 for a long sleeve is like pretty dang good. Like that's a good price. A lot of people are charging $50.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The going rate of shirts these days is just higher.
There was a band I really liked that I did sound for at Broken Bull, and I bought merch, and it was a t-shirt, a black t-shirt with white ink, $35, and then I tipped them $5.
Yeah, that's just like what's going on.
Well, because Broken Bull's also taking a merch cut there. It's like,
oh, I thought they didn't do merch cuts.
Oh, they do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 25. Jeff is doing his black shirts. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Because they're probably printed on more expensive
Yeah.
garments.
Mm-hmm. It's a cool shirt.
Yeah. I had like a really tough time trying to like come to terms with like selling a t-shirt for more than $10.
Yeah. Well,
It's
you
like,
can now.
I've been selling shirts for 15 for the last couple years off of the last record we released, and it seems like 15, man, for a t-shirt. Wow. But
Well, look at this. The designer of that black Hellmode shirt is Charmaine Verhagen, who storyboard artist on Craig of the Creek and worked on Adventure Time.
hell yeah. That's the cool thing about Jeff art and merch and product, everything that has an art on it, like the album covers and stuff. He knows all the best cartoonists in the fucking business now because he's on Craig of the Creek. So he can just like recruit all these amazingly talented people to just like do his band's merch, which is so great.
So cool.
Like nobody else has that to tap into.
No. I love that by the way, on the Polyvinyl, it's like shout out Polyvinyl. They are like, I'm looking at it right now. They're crediting who printed and designed.
Well, Jeff has always printed with Night Owls in Houston.
Oh, okay. Well, they're also, but I guess they're crediting the designers of the shirt, which
That's cool.
you're not seeing that. Most people are not crediting.
I see that a lot with the ska scene circle that I walk around. Like, there's a bunch of artists that are popping up a lot more often, and whenever a band posts their new T-shirt design, they always give credit, which is cool.
Well, that is extremely cool
Yeah,
because that is not common practice. So good on the punk scene, good on the ska scene.
I'll shout out Josh PM Freese, who plays in the band Sad Snack, and they just did the art for my new solo record, which will be out soon. You can see the art if you subscribe to my Patreon.
It looks really good. You should go do that.
But yeah, Josh has been doing art for a bunch of the ska bands. They did some flyers for Kill Lincoln that I saw and really caught my eye. I was like, I gotta hire this person for my stuff, and it's incredible. I'm so happy with the album art. Yeah, there's a lot of really great artists that are floating around the ska scene right now, which is cool. And we know about it because they're getting credit that they deserve, which is nice.
That's cool. Yeah, this is cool. Maybe we should get Charmaine on the pod. She overlaps quite a bit with our interests. There she is. Yeah. Anyway, go to patreon.com/Eric Daino. Get ready for that new record.
I think we should premiere a song on the podcast in a couple weeks.
Dude, whenever you want. Let's do it up top too.
Sure. Because I have, well, here's an announcement, I guess. It's probably been soft announced before, but on my new solo record, which will be out this fall, there is a cover of an Adventure Time song.
Hell yeah.
So I think we should premiere that before the official release on this podcast.
Fuck yeah.
In like 2 weeks, maybe?
Sweet. Let's do it. Get ready, guys. It will still be talking Fionna and Cake, so.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Anything else we need to say before we wrap this? I'm going to see the Mars Volta this week.
Oh,
on
dang.
Friday.
Yeah, I saw that notification. I was like, fuck, another great show that I'm missing because I have to work.
This week, I was going to talk about it next pod, but this week it's a bunch of good. So on Tuesday, I'm going to see Death Cab for Cutie and Postal Service at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, yeah.
And Death Cab's doing Transatlanticism and Postal Service is doing Give Up. Weirdly, I kind of missed Postal Service because it was still pre-internet days, and no one really told me about it. I just knew a song or two.
I knew the singles and the Streetlight Manifesto cover.
Yeah, but Transatlanticism is like
the cover of a cover. I mean,
no, that's the original.
Oh, that's yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. And then the other big single that they had was the Phil Collins cover.
Wait, which cover? The Postal Service or
yeah, Postal Service.
They cover Phil Collins,
right?
No. Well, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, Against All Odds.
Oh, cool. Oh, it's not. Is that on Give Up, or is that like a side release that they did? Yeah, it's not on the album. That would be why I don't know. But what's funny is that Iron and Wine covered Such Great Heights, and I think a lot of people assume that's the original song because it's just a dude on acoustic guitar playing Such Great Heights, and it's funny that it's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks. I see the Phil Collins cover right here.
Yeah,
Like-
Phil Collins goes so hard. We did his song from Tarzan at a wedding gig
Yeah,
recently. I was like, I fucking love that song. The guitar part's really rad.
so cool.
It's understated but very tasty.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Transatlanticism even more. That was a huge album. I guess the first indie rock album I guess I got when I was in, and that hit me so hard. And it's really interesting. I was listening. Ben Gibbard's been doing the podcast tour, and he was on Broken Record with some other hosts. But the dude was like saying both his albums, he was like, don't feel super time stamped. I don't know if you're a big Death Cab fan at all.
I had a little bit of a moment, but it was like at that point it was like afterwards. It was like I should catch up on this. Like, oh yeah, Transatlanticism was cool record. What was the record that I Will Possess Your
Narrow Stairs.
Yeah.
That came out when we were in college.
Yes. That's one that I got into a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Transatlanticism is a big one for me. But the thing I was going to say about it was, and the guy says in there, it's kind of timeless. Went back and listened to some records from bands that were popular in the 2010s. And it was interesting to me. I was listening to some records and I was like, this sounds so 2012 or this sounds so 2009. I was listening to like the first Passion Pit EP or album. And
right. Because like you can like very viscerally like remember like what you were doing at
yeah.
that
And I
point in
think
life.
the tones of like some of like, it's like, oh, the computers are coming into indie rock, which the Postal Service were hugely ahead on. But like just like the shiny indie pop, like stadium songs, like it just like had that's when I moved to New York. I can remember it, but also it just sounds a bit time stamped in a way that like 90s or 80s songs do. But I was listening to Transatlanticism, I was like, this is like not. I mean, it's weird that I vividly remember being like 14 listening to that record or whatever, 15, but it still feels relevant to my life. My friend was saying maybe it's because it's a bit more adult, but like I'm listening to it, I'm like, this is still really fresh, and that's a cool production choice, and that's a good lyric, and it feels relevant to my life versus just like straight nostalgia into my vein.
Yeah.
So that's like an interesting thing. I'm looking for that. On Thursday, Death Grips is playing, which I'm
Dang.
thinking about going. Are you around?
It'd be insane. No, I don't have any.
I know.
free
I just
time.
assume you're working.
I'm on a white knuckle hell ride to the end of the calendar year.
Oh God. Well, so Death Grips. So on tour for Death Grips, I don't know if you've seen this. So Zach Hill is the drummer from Hella and all this stuff, and the main dude MC Ride.
I would go to a show of just Zach Hill playing drums. by himself.
Yeah.
With nothing else.
Me too. Just to see this. And when he plays now, I think I don't know what he's doing on this tour, but in the past he's played in no cymbals. It's just like kick, snare, floor tom. And just like, it is like the hardest, most physical, fucked up drumming you're gonna ever see. Like I'll look up a live thing. And then they have a guy in the band, this guy Andy, who was the third member who produced the records with Zach Hill. I think Zach is like the main creative force. MC Ride does it. This is what I've read. Andy was also like mixing the records, but now for whatever reason Zach does have cymbals, it looks in store. So that Andy's not touring with them. So in their place, he did tour in Europe. There he is. But on the North American tour, they got Nick Reinhardt from Terra Melos
Oh my
in,
gosh.
and he's doing all the keyboard parts and the samples and stuff. But it's all his guitar fuckery because he's like the best guitar pedal user in the world. And then I think he has like a sample pad and some other stuff. But now, so it's Nick Reinhardt, Zach Hill, MC Ride. So I wasn't going to go, but now I'm sort of like, man, I think I got to see this tour while it exists. Yeah, let's see. Oh, this is a full concert. But yeah, but it's like, fucked up hit. Yeah, there's. So, that's the classic riff from Get Ga 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 Ga. And there's Nick Reinhardt's tapping it. Zach Hill doing his fucked up thing. Like, I don't know, man. This would be. It's just so viscerally fucked, this music.
I know. It's like amazing how popular this band became. There's something weird. Like, I think the Hard Times makes fun of Death Grips all the time. And I don't know how or why. Like there's something that came out of that band that, like, yeah, you can make fun of it, and it's still, it does what it's supposed to do. I don't understand it. Like, this should have been a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
Like, one record, wow, that was some weird shit, right?
Yeah.
And then it went away forever.
No, they have like 5 or 6 albums, and they're touring right now. They haven't put out a new album in like 4 or 5 years, and they sold out, I think it was 2 Terminal 5s and 2 Brooklyn Steels. So that's combined, that's like 10,000 tickets in New York City.
Because I remember like finding Hella on MySpace when I was 16 and being like, this is some weird shit. Who else likes this? No one? That makes sense.
Yeah. Totally. Oh my God. So weird. And yeah, but there's still, it's really, I don't know, man. Like, I was going through this insane anxiety, existential depression, all this stuff, and listening to it, I was like, this is really, really awesome. And like, I TikTok, there's still a million memes about Death Grips that are coming through, and it's
right.
And it was just talking about, like, someone was like, I saw some meme that was funny, which I don't want to like butcher because it's very sensitive, but someone was just like, it was like, trans teenager that doesn't know they're trans yet making Death Grips their entire personality. And it was something like that, because it's like, it's so crazy insane. But what's also insane about that is like, oh, okay, so that person had that experience with the music, and like these guys, like MC, like they're like 45 right now.
Yeah.
Like, because they've been doing this for a long time. So it's like, I think that maybe it's just proving the point that they're tapping into something extremely visceral and fucked up. I think a lot of people, I mean, they caught a lot of notoriety because they came out and were really big, and they signed to a major label. Did you follow all the, they did so many shenanigans that were like memey. So I have a friend who's like, I will not listen to that band. Like, they were so memey, like putting their dick on the album cover and leaking their own and doing all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, but like, I think it just shows that they truly don't give a shit, even though they were doing it, obviously knowing it would be headlines, but like, to just throw away your major label contract.
I know.
And they were just cancel tours willy-nilly. Like, they were supposed to go on their first big tour. They canceled it, said, no, we want to make our second record of 2013 or whatever. And then they did it. And then they were like, wait, we're not ready to put this out. We got to wait till next year. So then they just made Zach Hill's Erect Dick the album cover and leaked it themselves. And were let out of their album contract. And I think signed maybe a second, like, subsidiary, like their next level was a subsidiary of a major. And like, I don't know, it's just insane. They were supposed to open for 9 Inch Nails and canceled that tour, broke up.
It must make Horse the band so angry to know that a band can do this shit and still be successful.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
because before Death Grips was doing that, it was Horse the band, and everyone fucking hated them for it.
Yeah,
everyone was so pissed at Horse the band.
Yeah. Well,
and for some reason, everyone loves Death Grips.
Well, they also seem to be like drunken wild men in person.
Yeah.
I don't know if these guys were. Although on the Death Grips subreddit, I was like, because I finally got Death Grips. I listened to all their albums over the past 2 months, and yeah, people were saying, "Oh, they do. I think they do a lot of meth." Which I was like, "Well, I guess that makes sense when you listen to the music, but I don't know if that's true." Dude, they have an album. I don't know if you've listened to it, where it's all what is it? It's called The Powers That Be. It's all it's basically, so the way they make the Powers That Be, the first half, I forget what the name of it's like a double album they each released differently. It's all Bjork samples, but that's like the entire beats are Bjork samples. And I guess the way that they make a lot of these beats is Zach Hill loads up like a sample pad or whatever and is doing his Zach Hill thing to play the beats with whatever samples they have. but it's just super cool fucking I don't know. I was talking to my friend. I was like, where was I? I knew about this band because Sargent House helped put out the first Death Grips record because they were managing Zach Hill.
That's how I found out about them.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And I was like into it at the time, but I guess I didn't get it. Now I'm listening to it. I'm like, this music is so cool and weird. Why did I not get this like 10 years ago? They were ahead. Yeah, anyway, so they're playing. And then Friday, Mars Volta. I got to figure out how to get into the Death Grip show. It's sold out, and the tickets are going for like $100 in StubHub.
Dang.
So.
Are we getting tickets to Knock Loose?
Oh, yeah. And then to see Sean.
Yeah.
We got to figure that out, too. Okay, I'm going to write these these dates down. That'll be fun. I'm writing it down. Yeah, Sean's on tour with Knock Loose. We talked about it. The tour just started. You should go find Sean and say what's up if you're going to one of those shows. Knock Loose, very heavy, awesome band. Yeah, I'm really trying to write music and be fucking on it, but like, so I should go see that Death Grip show if I can. So that'll be cool. I had something else I was going to tell you, but maybe it'll come back to me after we end. And it doesn't need. Not every thought needs to be on the podcast. Not everything we talk about needs to be on the podcast, I suppose. But yeah, okay. Eric, anything else?
I think that'll tide us over till next week. What am I doing next week?
Have a sad come, baby.
Do you want to do this again on Sunday next week?
I should be good to go.
Oh, I can't do that actually.
Oh, I'll be around Saturday probably.
I have a wedding gig on Saturday.
Okay. Well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, my schedule's fucked.
Good luck.
Sorry, listeners.
Good luck to everybody out there. I'm sure there's a lot of folks that listen. I know there's a lot of folks that listen to us on work. Is it late to say this, but like you've told us that you listen to us while you're working or driving or doing some shift. I don't know. It seems like a hard time for everybody right now. Everyone I know is working really hard. I've been just mentally funky. Eric's grinding. Sean's on his first 7-week tour. Like everyone's going at it. I hope everyone out there can be kind to themselves, and hopefully we help you. I don't know. Just take care of yourselves. If you made it this far on the podcast too, we do love you for real.
Yeah.
Did you see the mail at gmail.com? Always happy to talk. I don't know. See you guys next week.
Peace out, y'all.